La 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 la. Hello, 'tis I, Magdalena, testing you. Alright. Here you go, my love.
Cool. Let me go out there.
Do you think I should bring the other one for someone else to use?
No, I don't think it's really that necessary.
Okay.
The second one. Do you think?
No. It does seem sort of handy.
Alright, we could put it on a stick.
I'll bring it.
I could put it on a stick if you want. Is it on? But it can be on?
I'll just bring it in my pocket.
Or I'll just give it as like a little talking stick. Make a talking stick out of it.
You're studying at the moment?
No, I was.
You were?
Yeah, and then things changed.
Cool. Maybe we can circle up here and we'll start again out here. Here you go, though.
Oh, perfect. Is that a good stick? I think I can find a better one actually.
This one, love? Magdi. What?
I'm not a dog.
Years and then I opted out and just. Well, that's what I was getting to.
So feel free to keep munching and oh, sorry, Zinni. It's so much nicer and easier running bush school with adults sometimes. So in a situation like that, if we're say doing an instrument or doing a call-in, I would essentially be the lead mentor, leading that bringing the energy in. And then if there are others that were still playing and stuff, it's one thing for, say another mentor to sit there and represent it, what we should be doing, and that's helpful maybe for a moment. But one of the most valuable things, especially as a lead mentor, to feel from the other mentors is the rounding up and the containing. Because we need to kind of separate out, like split ourselves. We need to do both, and we can't when we're actually in that space. It might be like the song or the holding here, and I don't want to have to get up from the circle to go and grab someone to bring them over, or conflict resolve over there. bring them back. So one of the most valuable things you can be as a mentor is have that initiative and tuning into the lead mentor of what they're trying to create, and then how can you be a cog in that to help create that. Is that clear? Does that make sense? Yeah, that's actually something that is like really like important as someone who runs a bush school, is to feel your mentors. Like, they could have all the qualifications and all the training and have all the songs and the craft and all these kind of the what's, but it's actually the how that makes the biggest difference. And so the how is situational awareness, is kind guidance, representing what we're supposed to be doing in a good way, and tuning in with the energy that's happening. So that's, again, such a beautiful self-development tool of life. Like, if one can do that with 10 wily kids, then we can do that in other aspects of life too. So I thought that's what I was covering, is initiative. Yeah, all of that I guess would fall under the umbrella of using initiative. Yeah. So yeah, it's been interesting seeing the profiles that you guys have written, and then also the things that you're recognizing that you'd like to work on and to develop. And so in this afternoon session, to be honest, I feel like this could totally be a 2-day thing. And I feel like I really appreciated the sharing and the flow of, because we're all learning and cross-pollinating with each other, and that's so great. And that could almost be like a whole day of exchanges and specific examples that we workshop and stuff. So I'm recognizing, I'm just speaking to the limitations that we do have of like trying to cram a lot of that into the next few hours even. So I just wanted to speak to that, and I'll do my best to keep things like as streamlined and concise and covering as many bases as possible, but also not rushed, and for us to actually drop in with certain things. But so on our thing that we shared, I've kind of broken it down into 2 things, like the one-on-one mentoring, and then also bush school, and they're very much they very much relate. Like, the skills that you get from one-on-one mentoring are super important to be able to do that as well within a group setting. Especially if we have a day program, like, I'll make it really like a concerted effort that I would have had at least a moment with each of those kids to check in on them, or to have that moment of rapport building. So, and I've referred to it a few times, rapport-based relating, and essentially that's one of the most important things, is to be able to build rapport with a young person to then have that that level of respect and relationship, which then all the other things are going to come from. And yeah, one of the important things. So what kids learn in school are the 3 R's mainly: reading, writing, and arithmetic. And what we're touching on, and this is part of Dan Siegel's work, if you're not familiar with it, he's a great person to explore, is, and some of his references are in what I've shared with you guys, and that is the other 3 R's: relationship, resilience, and reflection. And so essentially that's what we're facilitating within the bodies of work that we do, is those 3 aspects, which are actually way more valuable and useful in everyday life. Especially with the use of devices these days. You can spell check, you can calculate. So the reading, writing, arithmetic, you can dictaphone, all these things. Like, there's biohacks around that now. But building relationships, that's a very real, tangible thing that we have to have with humans, with animals, with ourselves. reflective practices to be able to actually like sit and process and reflect on something, and to actually have resilience, to have like physical resilience and emotional resilience when things seem overbearing or overwhelming and all too much, to actually have that capacity to have perspective and almost what I call it sometimes is living in hindsight. So it's like you're living in hindsight now, then, which is hard for young people in particular, is because as a mentor, we're looking at it and we can see in hindsight if they've fallen over and it's the worst thing, or like someone's taken their stick off them and it's the worst thing in the world that's ever happened to them in that moment. They're just so in the moment. It's like, I can't believe this. I hate them. I'm gonna kill them. We're sitting there from hindsight going, by tomorrow, you're not going to care about, in an hour's time, you're not even going to care about that stick. That stick's going to be laying on the ground. Like, we can recognize that because we've actually experienced or been exposed enough to these situations. And so for us to be able to also even cultivate that within the young ones is being able to have hindsight like now, like through reflective practices. And I think that's what's really helpful with the sharing circles as well. Something that always seems to happen with the boys' initiation works that we do is we'll ask what was the most challenging thing, and then they will tell us, oh yeah, it was doing this, and then it was, and at the time they'll be screaming, we can't do that, I can't do that, or they'll have emotional breakdown or something, and we'll work through it, and we'll just go one foot after another, and then we'll get to the top of the mountain, whatever it is. And then also in part of the reflective practice, we'll say, what was your favorite thing? And they always often say that. They say that it was that challenging thing. And so then they build that resilience. They build that perspective of, oh yeah, that challenge. So if we can have these reflective practices, even in shorter, less intense containers, when I say less intense, like as in like it having to be like a big climbing a mountain initiation thing, it could just be as simple as like the homeschool after school care thing of like, hey, what was one of your most, and we'll do this at the end of bush school, like what was one of the things that you learnt, or enjoyable things or challenging things that you had today, and for them to be able to express that really helps their processing capabilities, and then therefore their reflection, and then their resilience, because then it's almost like a recognition of them going through that mini rite of passage in that moment, which then brings them to a greater state of capacity and confidence, essentially. So yeah, with the one-on-one mentoring, it's really great to be able to like have those little moments with each one, to be able to recognize those things, or even ask them, inquire with those things, and then it helps really with the honorings as well. Like, because then if say a young person shared, I might, because I've witnessed them that day, have that really specific honouring of them too. So it's like, and Rain might have just said, it was really hard day today because I spilt my lunch and then it was really upsetting and I lost my favourite meal. And then I'm like, and then I might say, oh, but I did notice how at recess you had actually shared your banana or whatever and your grapes with someone else. And then I noticed after you dropped your thing, then they were able to give you, they gave you some of their lunch or something like that. That was just a random thing I pulled out of my head, but just because then that young person will have that specific relationship of feeling seen, feeling witnessed, and then connecting those dots of like, and maybe just a little honouring of their generosity or their kindness that they've shown or something, and even just being able to shoot them throughout the closing circles or even throughout the day, just having those like little moments of witnessing. Who here in their upbringing, or even just in adult life, but who here, like, it's one of the most special things is to feel someone like witnessed you and then they give you a little like insight into that. Who, raise your hand if that's, yeah, like I definitely feel that. Like if someone's gone, oh, I saw that act of kindness and yeah, nice one. Like that like shifts something inside our being. And so if we can be that big person that can do that, that then that can totally shift the trajectory of someone's whole self-concept and confidence. So by being able to do that also publicly, what we're doing is modeling that and creating that culture, which is against actually what our current Australian in particular culture is, and that is like, the tall poppy syndrome. Someone says there's something good or whatever, we want to cut them down, and the way to build up rapport and relationship is by teasing someone. And so by able to shift that and going, hey, well, actually we can honor, and we'll do that at the end of, like, say, the boys walks or the camps where we've spent more time with each other. We'll do like a 2-minute honoring where the person's sitting there and everyone has a chance. And so by the end of it, like, these boys, everyone would have had a chance to have received 2 minutes of honouring from the other boys, and then also refining their skills in that. I'm like, oh, let's not make it an aesthetic thing. Oh, I like your hat, and like, let's actually share about something that's relates to their being or that you've noticed about them. And by the end of it, literally by the end of the half-hour sharing that we would have done, the kids are just so much better at it. And so that was like a thing that we could bring in consistently into their lives. They'll be amazing at it. And I always give the encouragement for them not to just wait until it's a facilitated circle to honour someone, actually just do it voluntarily and spontaneously. So yeah, I'm really good with doing that with kids. I'm still working on doing that with adults better. I find it flows better. But yeah, so again, it's a beautiful layer of seeing where our edges are as well.
Can I ask something about like closing circles?
Yeah.
Because where we work, we don't necessarily have a closing circle. It's pretty much like the parents come and then
Yeah.
they bounce.
Yeah.
So in terms of like what it is that you do in the closing, do you just recommend kind of like putting little seeds in throughout, like the sesh? Of like.
Why don't you do it at the end?
There is no set.
There's no.
They come as pop.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, they all get picked up just randomly.
Yeah.
So it's like peace. Sometimes
Yeah.
they don't even say bye. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like what it is. Like the really important things. What would you say in a closing circle are reflection, right? What was
Yeah.
challenging? What was enjoyable today?
Yeah.
To reflect.
Yeah.
So then, like maybe we could. Do you think maybe we could like just start feeding that in? Like, how's it been for you today? Like, have you had any
Totally.
challenges today? Just
Yeah.
throughout.
What I'd suggest is that you create a culture within that group and even put it out to the parents and saying, we're actually going to do a checkout with one of the mentors on pickup. So therefore, it could be just one person, say, who's there, but also that maybe the person that they have the closest, that you guys choose already, or whatever it is. You might even set up, all right, you're going to keep an eye on these 5 people, you keep an eye on them, and then so the parent will know that you're the person that they check out with. And then you do a checkout. Because one of the greatest tools I've used is like the most possibly disciplinary, mainly, don't tell anyone this, but like often it's a bluff. but that is, do you want me to talk to your parents about this? Just pull that card out.
We use that.
Yeah.
Like,
And it can't be a bluff. It has to be known as back up. So, all right, well, we're going to be doing the checkout. I'm going to be doing the checkout with your mum later. And would you rather me tell them that you're being really kind and cooperative, or do you want me to tell them that you're fighting and we're not too sure that if we can have that kind of aggression here? And then they'll be like, oh, no, the first one. It's like, okay, well, cool. Well, then you express that. You do that. And then they'll be like, oh, okay. And I've seen like the hardest, most challenging ones where it's like, oh, they're just not listening. They're just not listening. Just shoot one of them and like add that eye contact and say, hey, like 5 names are popping into my head because I've had that conversation. Trying not to use them, but so, hey, and then they're really proud, and then you give them a good honouring at the end. It's like, hey, I really noticed how you were almost in a fight there before, but then you really calmed down and you used your words instead of your fists, and that was really cool. And so he's doing really well, and for them to be honoured in front of their parents as well. Then we're training the parents on how to honour, be honoured, to see the value of them having that positive reinforcement. I see that being a big piece too, is like when parents, they'll often like want to play off the fact that their kid's a little shit. And they're like, oh yeah, how was the little guy today, kind of thing. And it's like, oh, actually they were really good. I just found that they needed to be engaged with, and they were really helpful when they were shown how to do things. And then they're like, oh, okay. And so I'm helping them to understand, hey, if you just show and give time and presence to this person, then they're going to actually be really a good asset. And they often are. Like, it's just how and they end like, yeah, young people will just rise to their environments, and so yeah.
It makes harder even when like school camps and the teacher is the one doing the. Of course, was Jake.
Yeah.
Who else could be?
Yeah.
So the kids already coming from home, already like feeling
Yeah.
shit, and the teacher just reinforces.
Yeah.
And that's what
Totally.
we need to do, like calm down.
Yeah.
Can we do
Yeah. Yeah.
Shaming.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
There's a lot like picking a lock. Like I can't physically do that, but you got to work out how to pick this lock or find that way to reach this kid that's a little
Yeah.
bit harder to
Yeah.
normally engage with or get to engage with the group.
Yeah.
But each child isn't a problem child or a lock that can't be unsolved. It's just
Yeah.
try and meet it at a different kind of angle rather than those ones that we can like
Yeah.
meet with more ease.
Yeah.
Gabor talks about that a lot. Is like there's no difficult clients. It's like if you're calling someone a difficult client, you're the one having the difficulty with that person. You know? So there's that space for self-reflection.
Yeah.
Establishing that difference.
So question.
Whereas how can we establish greater rapport with
Yeah.
So question, like in situations like that, the teacher usually comes or whoever responsible and ask or say like, yeah, Jake is trouble, just be aware in that one, let me know if any trouble stuff.
Yeah.
So what I usually do is say, okay, Jake will be my best friend.
Yeah.
Come to him straight ahead and say, Jake, can you help me today?
Yeah.
So
That's
give you
right.
some responsibility
That's
and,
right.
and then he starts to play. Do you
Exactly.
have any other suggestions?
Yeah,
Anything?
for sure. Yeah. So that's a really good point. So like enrollment is really important. So getting that layer of enrollment with them and that's building rapport because you're already showing respect that you're offering responsibility. You're offering a relationship that you're saying, hey, I'm seeing you, that you can, that we can do this together. They start marking up and say, hey, Jake, remember you're going to help me with this. Another one is, yeah, definitely.
I mean, like helping as giving responsibility as well.
Yeah.
Jake, can you help him to check if everyone is in here?
That's
So
right.
they feel like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
a co-leader.
Yeah.
I'm important here.
Yeah, yeah, and also just reminders.
Teachers that's where praise is almost
Yeah,
like only necessary in that moment is to like praise when they're responsible so that the children feel like they belong and that they're part of something and that they're, you know, the praise when they're doing something that supports everyone is really important.
yeah,
Instead
totally.
of like, oh, that's a good drawing or that's,
Yeah.
you know, that's a good thing.
yeah, yeah. So, and then having that positive reinforcement with and as I was sharing with the tools that works for them with the carers or their parents or whoever else that does pick them up. So that could be like an interesting challenge that you guys have with that is like, how do you do, how many kids would come to your program? It's like at the end of the day? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So it's, yeah, so it's like how would you manage 20 mini checkouts with a mentor, a young person and a parent within 30 seconds to a minute? Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, just acknowledge that as part of your procedures, which then so you'd know when there's a mentor doing that, you're like, oh, it's right, let's just give them space because they're just doing a quick checkout. You know, if another kid's trying to like get their attention or whatever, it's like you guys support each other to do that because essentially all this is creating culture, and so you guys get to create your own work culture around that, and then before you know it, like that's what their parents are doing at the end of a day or at the end of whatever they're doing. They're doing like they're using that language of like a checkout or an honouring or yeah, being out, and also reflective practices. Like it could be like simple as like ask the young person what was their favourite thing that day. The first couple of times, they might not even say anything, and then you could even give them those little prompts. Oh, I noticed that you were playing with that person. How was that? Oh yeah, that was good. Oh yeah, and also that game. I saw you really got into that. Did you like that? And they're like, oh yeah. And like, oh, so would you consider them as things that you enjoyed today? Oh yeah, I guess so. And that's another thing I'll kind of touch more on that, but it's like the way of framing questions and the way of leading things is like maybe giving options, giving it in the positive, giving it in a way that's not like sometimes I can do it in a way that's like positively manipulative, which is, and in recognizing that, like, and I joke around it with the mentors at the end, it's like, well, yeah, we're manipulating them to actually come to the conclusions that we're wanting them to, but just through right kind of questioning. And manipulation is just a molding and a moving into a particular direction. And so manipulating someone is often has a bad context because it's like you're manipulating someone for your own self-gain. But what if I'm manipulating someone for their own benefit? Like, that's actually a positive. So it's like, all right, well, how do I show you the right questions? Like, do you want me to have a conversation with your parents to tell them that you're fighting today? And then the answer is no. Okay, well, would you like me to tell them that you guys are getting along really well? Yes. Well, how would you guys like to get along well? What are some things that you can do for that? Oh, be kinder to each other. All right, cool. So can you commit to doing that for the next 10 minutes while you're playing this game? Yes. All right, cool. So I've actually helped guide them down this path to them being empowered to make the decision themselves, them understanding the consequence, making sure that it isn't a bluff, because you will actually be able to come through with it, but for the most part it will be. It's like, I can't be fucked having that extended conversation, but when it gets to it, I will. But for them to know, because they can also tell if you haven't fulfilled certain commitments that you're a pushover. And I had that experience growing up where my mum was super nice and easygoing, and you'd think was a safer and nicer environment, but it was actually seemed less regulated and less safe on reflection as a young person growing up than I did at my dad's place, that had clear boundaries of what action and consequence would happen, and certain behaviours. And so it was confusing for me going 2 weeks at one, 2 weeks at the other, and I'm sure that kids are faced with that at like a much faster rate than 2 weeks at one, 2 weeks at another, school mentors, So it's great for us to be able to create that consistency in their lives, even if it's just our consistency in relating with them, but also the consistency within the family networks and stuff, if we can then support that. But also, you're going to get pushback, especially from parents, if they feel like that you're coming in and telling them how to parent or what they need to do better. You just got to be able to model that in such a grounded, clear way with complete commitment without attachment, which is again another balance. It's like, I'm fully committed to your kids' well-being and to this situation being resolved well, but I'm actually not attached to the outcome, because at the end of the day, that's their choice and that's your kid and that's your. But I'm also here willing to show up in full commitment of that. And if you can find that happy place in yourself, you'll probably sleep better, have better results, and also have that felt more as well, because it's not messy, it's just really clear. Yeah. And so that was back into the one-on-one mentoring aspect of things too, because I've been finding that's been my main bread and butter for the last 3 or so years, and that becomes very personal in many ways. Of going to someone's place, picking the kid up, driving them, having conversations, taking them places, having conversations that they might not necessarily have with their parents, or having weird dynamics with maybe the stepdad, who then feels like, oh, well, how come I get to do all the fun things now, and they used to be that guy, and the seeing things when you're in the handover, the toxicity of relationships, of conversations and ways, and then it's like, all right, well, I can see why these behaviours play out in that environment, but not in the environment when they're with me. How to know where to draw the line with that. How to, there's a lot involved in that. But what's I think the most important is not to necessarily push an agenda in any of those realms, and in particular, and not to be some sort of mind level thing that needs to be worked out and fixed. It's actually dropping into and trusting in your effect and your power of being a tuning fork in their life, essentially, a resonance of reason, of clarity, of care, of openness, of availability. Just being that, showing up in that, because that is actually going to affect them and impact them way more than you getting into the nitty-gritty details of a particular life situation that they're going through. So for example, often it's like, oh, how's everything going at school? Oh, this kid is really picking on me. I can't stand it. They're really, being so mean and stuff. And one of the first things to be able to, I guess, build rapport or build trust with people is a practice of active listening. And it has to be authentic and genuine as well, but it's actually just being able to say, oh, right, well, so I hear you're having a hard time with, and it might not be as obvious as this. I probably would make it a little bit more subtle, but I'm just doing this as an example now. Oh, right, I see how that would be really challenging for you, having someone that you feel is always picking on you. Yeah, it is. Oh, is there anything else going on in that situation? Yeah, well, they just don't leave me alone, and then they're ganging up on me, and they're getting other people not to like me as well. Oh, so you feel like you're getting other people, like he's making other people not like you as well. And so I'm not instantly dropping into like, oh, that really sucks, or that guy must be really mean. It's actually just like listening into the information shared and how that would feel, and going, oh wow, yeah, that would, I hear that you're saying that. And the first is even just, I hear that you're saying that. Oh, is there anything else, or what else is it? And just being able to open that up even more and seeing, repeating it, yeah, totally.
If you repeat it back, then they hear it from you.
Yeah.
They can understand it better.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To have it,
Done that today so well.
to have it mirroring. I have.
Example, yeah.
Okay.
You know, like some of you may have noticed when there's a question asked, Lex will ask it back to make sure it's clear.
Yeah.
That's like perfect.
Yeah. And then also helping reframe it maybe in a way that's just more simple, and then they can go, oh yeah, it is that. I just feel isolated because they're picking on me, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. So you can sit with that, and then not to try to jump into the solution of it, and just be able to be in the situation of it. But you also, again, it's this interesting line, because you also don't want to get lost into the abyss of that. So there needs to be some sort of like recognition of it, and so it's like, oh well, what are the things that you like to do when you are by yourself? It might be, and it's like, oh, I like to read, or I like to do these things. Like, oh, so when you're in isolation, that you choose to be in isolation by yourself, there are some positive things to that, is there? Oh yeah, I guess so. Like, I do like being by myself when at times. I'm like, oh cool. So and then just kind of being able to also possibly even draw from your own experience. I find that's really more on the one-on-one, but also just like being really real with people. Again, like I've used examples of that today, where I've been able to reflect on, like just then I reflected on my upbringing of my mum and my dad. Like, I didn't have to go into detail around that and go like, just some sob story about how they got divorced and they had custody battles and it was really fucking hard. Like, I just was able to like concisely explain that there is different dynamics, and sometimes they have their pros and their cons, and that's something that I've experienced too. Or hey, yeah, I had a friend, I had a time when I felt like everyone was against me at school, but I realized that it was actually they were shy, and they just it actually took for me to actually build up that friendship with them before we became friends again. They weren't actually trying to hide from me, they were just also going through their own challenges or something, giving that perspective, and by building it, sharing it from my own vulnerability or my own experience, then that young person goes, oh wow, like, well, if that was your experience, I guess I can also share there was this other bit that happened, and the other thing and this is maybe more with the older ones, I find really helpful and it actually almost needs to always come back to this in some ways, like how do we take responsibility for our involvement in that? Like how do we take some sort of accountability or recognition of whatever it is a part, like I'm a part of it. So and even just having that conversation with them by reframing it and say, okay, so they're doing this, they're doing that, I hear that they're doing that, like what is it that you feel like you might be doing in this situation that's making that happen? Oh, nothing. I'm not doing anything. It's like, oh, okay. Well, so, like, has it always been like this? And it can be really hard to kind of do that. And also, you don't want to put the pressure on too much to them feel like, oh, it's they're layering more self deprecating thoughts and ideas on themselves that but it's a really important journey to be able to support a young one to be able to do that, because again we're planting the seeds of them problem resolving and understanding these dynamics at play. So there's that little bit. Is there any questions around that? Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You know the parent card?
Yeah.
Play the parent card. Played it a few times at the after school care, and there's a few that are just like, my parents don't play.
Yeah.
I don't care what my parents think.
Yeah.
Know? And then I'm like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Like the principal, they care for the principal. Like that's one. But yeah, then I'm like, oh damn, now I
What
lost all my.
What about, like, do they want to keep coming back?
To the after school care. No, they hate it. They're like, this is the worst place ever.
Okay, yeah. So you can't leverage off that. That's
No.
challenging. And stuff.
They're like, I hate being here. I don't want to be here. Some of the kids.
What do they want to do?
They're just really bored. They say that
Yeah.
they're
They
bored.
want to go
but
home and play the PlayStation.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
they want to get on their phone.
On their devices, yeah. Okay.
So then we're like, got games, we've got everything set up. There's so much to do.
Yeah.
They're like, nah, I'm bored.
It's tricky because they spend all day at school and then they have to stay at school.
Stay at in the same environment, yeah.
I feel like that deep listening in those experiences could be really supportive, because obviously the tech and the games is a distraction for some sort of discomfort deeper down.
Yeah, because sometimes I go through it. It's like you can't fight it, join it. So it's like, all right, what games do you want to play? Fortnite. All right, well, what do you do on Fortnite? Run around and collect guns. All right, well, how do we play a scavenger hunt that's like that we run around and we find stuff? We could make our own version of Fortnite here. All right. All right, and then it's like, all right, cool. All right, so what does it look? And I showed genuine interest, what's it called? Minecraft, and like, oh, how does Minecraft work? Like, how do you guys communicate with each other? So you got headsets and stuff. All right, so we can actually communicate each other with like in real person here. But how would we do that? All right, do you have teams? How can we make our own version of this? And then just really kind of get them to morph it into something that then is. And like, yes, that's right. Yeah, getting them to create it for sure.
Could I ask you guys, how old are the kids in your primary school?
5 to
There's
10.
kiddies too.
Generally 5 to 10.
5 to 10.
Sometimes in
I'm not
vacation
sure.
time older.
I'm not sure if I have time today, but it would be great to just float some ideas.
Mm.
All the boys do just want to come back and play war games.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
violence.
for
It's
sure.
How can we still foster that, but make it non-violent?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought about maybe like get a jiu-jitsu trainer in to like
Totally.
get them, or maybe get them sumo wrestler suits or something. And
For
just,
sure.
Like, bang at each other.
For sure.
Boxing or something.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, all of that. Yeah, sumo wrestling, boxing, wrestling, all at the same time. No, for sure. And we could do a few of those things where like facilitating how to create games, and I've got some games that you can do, which is like, sorry, what was that? Yeah, so, well, I'll give you a really simple one. Can someone be my guinea pig with me? Like, yep. Anyone? Yeah, cool. All right. So even like, have you guys ever played this game, which is like a really simple, because it's actually quite a peaceful wrestling game. Are you guys familiar with this? Where it's like, okay, so the aim of the game is you got to try to get the other person to move their feet, and the only points of contact are your hands, but you can pull them away. Yeah, so you see how, yeah, and so you're not allowed to touch anything of the other person. So you're moving around, you could like build up the pressure, and you know, you see pulling away, and then, or you could like give them a push, and then, that is a bit mean, but yeah. And then but let them lose a few times, and then they get humbled a little bit as well. And then just like, all right, we got to bend your knees, you got to stay in your balance. And this is actually a beautiful metaphor. I like taking it into life. It's like, well, if you overcommit and then, you know, you lose, then you like lose what you've lent into. But then also if you're always like pushing, then you're going to lose your own center. And then also if someone's pushing against you and you're not able to do that. So there's
It's the one with the fencing itself that you cut.
yeah. There's
Oh, the one.
Fencing.
Yeah, so you hold
like
your hands with your feet.
yeah.
So put your, yeah. So the idea is you can touch with your
Yeah.
and you're doing the same time. So it's like
That feels
yeah.
risky with young boys.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Also, also like, yeah, certain wrestling games, and always establish the rules of that, because that's an extra layer of agreements as well. So it's like, and then also explain intensities. And I like creating games that show layers of intensity as well. Like, okay, let's go at 30%. And so even that game that we're just doing there, like moving around, I actually have done a lot of movement training stuff in my life, and then also work with my friend Simon Thacker, who he does ancestral movement. And so part of what we have been doing as PGC is paying for the mentors to come and do that training with him on Monday afternoons in the park. And a lot of that's like kind of like just awareness-based games. Leeway, if you want to jump up here, where, for example, you could use anything, and so he has to keep his nose like as close as he can to this, this piece. So it's like a full like focus. Oh, you want to, like kind of give him a challenge, but not make him move. And then there's all these like different like mobility games that we can do like that. It could be like the hands, like, throwing and catching, where you're like bouncing between and seeing how many times you can do that. Like, and then creating these fun challenges for them. So it's like, all right, well, if you've got a partnership, and then so it ends up being like, it could be you have 3 that day. All right, we're going to have these 3 activities and see if your partner can get these certain things. And you could even have like a thing up on the board where then it's like, and again, we try to make it, even though that's like competitive, they're trying to better themselves, even establish that. It's like, this isn't who's going to be like the champion and the dominant and the best. This is actually just an opportunity for you to better yourselves and refine, like improve your skills. And that might not be fully received, but at least you're putting it out there. Like they still might go into the whole like competitive mindset mode and say, all right, well, that's where you're at. But at least if you just keep holding down, like for example, we make boats and we do, it used to be called boat racing, but I changed it to boat float. So even something as simple as that, it's like, it's not actually about the race, because they would just get, oh, mine won, and then people would be crying and theirs fell apart and then whatever. And it's like, no, this is actually just a fun expression of like how we can. And so we just kind of kept evolving that. It was like, who could make the most artistic one? Who's the one that can be like fall apart the most when you go down? Like, think of the worst thing that could happen and make that the goal. Like, just,
Love that psychology.
yeah. Which one's going to be the last one across the line, like whatever it might be. And then it just kind of like these sharp ideaed minds of like, oh, it has to be this way, kind of start getting like, oh, okay, like creativity is the priority here as opposed to like the outcome. And we are against a huge influence of like outcome-based performance, like, and skill-based, like refined skill-based stuff. So that's another big passion of mine, is to actually have more collaborative-based, like I'd like to make Nature Ninja like as popular as say soccer, where you do nature-based parkour and exploring stuff for twice a week, and then on the weekends, instead of going to a flat soccer field where then the only one winner and you have to play a specific ruled game to then win a specific outcome, where it's more about like how do we come and then connect and learn new skills and collaborate and explore and be embodied, as opposed to it being like one person being the champion or whatever it is. So, but that's like that's quite a paradigm shift from the current state, but it's there, and we are in the best area for that, with that open-minded people, I think, as well. So I think it's possible, and again, I think we just need to keep showing up to it in those ways. But
Can I ask you to speak a little bit more about that sense of, even though the children don't take up things, trusting in ourselves that we're putting it out there, and that sense of meeting the resistance, like even you're talking about these movement practices. I've done work with Simon as well, and Simon's practice as well, but never in my mind thought, I should bring these to these children.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
I've tried those kind of things with the pod I was part of last year.
Yeah.
But just noticing myself that resistance.
Yeah.
These children, no way. How can we do that?
Yeah.
They just like playing handball. They're so obsessed with handball.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, having that inner resilience, modeling that inner resilience. And that flexibility. Keep bringing something. And trusting that there'll be some growing feedback. and yeah, trusting in the journey of it.
Yeah.
We can. It's for us. It's about establishing a culture.
Yeah. Totally.
And to do that, we have to be bold and courageous.
Yeah.
Try new things and
Yeah.
be repetitive with it.
Yeah.
Be consistent with it.
Yeah.
Fresh with it.
Yeah.
Not
So,
repetitive.
an example of that, like when with Nature Ninja, I'd do these animal games, and so it would be different animals, and then I would even incorporate the didge where I'd play different sounds on the didge, and then they would associate that with an animal, and then they would be that animal, and I'd totally just make it all up with them. Like I would just be like, oh, what animal does this sound like? And they're like, oh, that sounds like the goanna. I'm like, all right, let's do the goanna movements when that's doing that, and then there would be confusion at times or whatever, but just having that consistency that we knew at least 7 animals that they all knew how to move like. And then from there, all these other games came. So it's like, all right, well then, if that animal touches, if you're a crab and you touch someone, then they turn into a crab, and then we see which animal, like there's going to be, so who wants to be this animal, who wants to be that, who wants to be that, okay, you guys all start in the corner, go, and so they're playing all these like quadrupedal games that are really good for their brain and their body development and their posture and all this stuff, but they don't even know it because they're just playing the game because they're trying to be the animal, and so behind us we can know the deeper intelligence behind all that, but it's like, all right, how do we get it to that point where it's actually engaging and playful and meeting them where they're at, and so like for another example of that is one of the other games that we play is Scared Kangaroo, which is essentially red light, green light, which kids seem to love to play as well. Yeah, it's like you walk, and it does create a lot of contention, and sometimes I kind of relish in that because it's like, oh, this is like great that they're having a meltdown over this, because then they can learn how to like deal with that as opposed to like having a meltdown over something actually serious. But and one of the lines I've said also with Bush School is part of our job is to facilitate disappointment. Like that's a big part of it, is like how well can you facilitate disappointment, and maybe even set up situations where they're bound to be disappointed. Like this game where literally like someone's a kangaroo, and if they turn around, the people who are trying to stalk up on them, if they're caught moving, then they have to get sent back to the end of the line, into the group. And so like the majority of the game, you're getting caught out and going, oh, and like literally like the most common thing to say is, oh, come on, like I wasn't moving, and then they go back, and everyone doesn't feel like that they were moving. But when you're the scared kangaroo position, you turn around, it's so obvious that someone's like doing, some sort of movement. And then that game was very two-dimensional at first. It was like, kids going, let's play red light, green light. I'm like, what are they? So I'll find out what the game is, to go, all right, so I can't beat it, join it, and then I'll go, okay, so it's this weird like turning around, red light, green light, or whatever, and so, okay, so let's make that animal based. What animal would do that? Oh, a kangaroo for sure, and it's like really fun to kind of like do a kangaroo and turn around. And then so how can we relate this to like not just being on a flat piece of earth, like how we can make this on the landscape, and so then that person has to move around on the landscape as they're doing it, and then how do I make this less like bipedal, less like just walking around like this that they do all day? How can we we've got to be actually dingoes, and so we've got to move around like this, and then okay, maybe it's not just a kangaroo, maybe it's a koala, so they're climbing up trees or climbing up in the jungle gym, and then like it becomes even more three-dimensional. And so it's coming from something that was like kind of mainstream and boring and one-dimensional to like something that's like multi-dimensional. And so that's just an example of like how to then use what they're already wanting to do and then turn it into something that's, it's more dynamic. Yeah. 1:30, cool. All right. Sweet.
Sorry, there's also the mention of there's some kids that will say, no, don't you do anything, and